Professor Nasr. And I didn't know all this information about her. Sometimes you don't know how great people are. They're just so humble and so down to earth like she is. But just briefly, she has 20 years in journalism, working in CNN from 1990 to 2010. She played a very important role in the international news gathering desk, conducting interviews and producing reports and documentaries. So wow, what a treat. Her transformative efforts are recognized with Lifetime Achievement Award for evolving CNN World Report into a live program. Innovative, that is amazing. Featuring professional coverage of world events and breaking news. She also founded a company, Bridges Media Consulting, an international boutique consulting firm that provides media organizations worldwide with newsroom management, talent scouting, and coaching and team building. She has a Master's of Arts in Communication right here from Georgia State University, where her thesis explored the rhetoric of yoga. I love yoga. It helped me do in my pregnancy with my last kid. Traditional identity and ethical codes. She also holds a Bachelor of Arts in Communication from the Lebanese American University. She has also garnered several awards and recognitions: Edward R. Murrow Award for Lebanon's continued war coverage, and the Overseas Press Club Award for CNN Post 911 coverage. Outside her professional accomplishments, she is an accomplished teacher of mindfulness practices. I love that. I love that. Without any further ado, I am going to invite Professor Nasr up to share some information about herself and what she does. All right.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's a true pleasure to be here today. I thought I'll prepare a little introduction just to tell you the state of journalism. This is the name of my presentation. And this is a shameless plug for my course, which is the Journalism Practicum. If you are considering taking this class, I highly recommend it. Undergrad, grad, these are my students. This is us in 904, that's the GSU TV lab, and these are my students out on a shoot. So please come to this class. It's an amazing class. I think we'll get to talk a little bit about it later. What I want you to consider as we think about the future of journalism, like where are we going from here, right? I want you to think of these scenarios that I have here for you. Let me just get my notes as well. When we say crowd wisdom, you've experienced that, right? What does that mean, crowd wisdom? And I kind of wrote it for you, so you can basically just read what I wrote and we can talk about it. Did you notice that of late everybody's an expert? Right? Like people are experts on medicine, on chemistry, on physics, on the stars, and everything, yoga, you name it. We Google it, it's on YouTube, we know how to fix things, we know how to do things, everybody is an expert. So as we consider the future of journalism, it's very important to understand that this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with people who not only feel that they're experts on things, but they also have a megaphone. They're able to produce, podcasts. They're able to produce content and put it on social media, put it on, online. So that's a reality that a lot of people are not paying attention to. And I think for you, as you embark on your careers soon, this is something to think about. So everybody is an expert. Everyone has a megaphone. The power of social media, we figured it out by now. It can make or break people. You can cancel people. You can be an unknown, and overnight you're a celebrity. You're an influencer, making a ton of money. People are following you. And then just like you rose, you can also fall. Power of social media. So in the crowd wisdom, there's something good and there's something bad. The good about it, you want to guess what it is? What could be good about all this?
More information.
More information, right? What else?
Anyone can learn anything whenever they want.
That's right? So accessibility, things are accessible to people. So yes, if I have a mole on my hand, I can look it up and just kind of get an idea what this could be, or when I should see a doctor, and so forth. But also think about the people who have no voice, the people who don't have money to buy fancy cameras and microphones and produce podcasts and have sponsorship. So these people might be the geniuses, the amazing innovators and disruptors of the future. If they don't have a megaphone, we're not going to hear about them. So in the old days, things were sort of monopolized by the big guns, by the big people with a lot of money and a lot of advertising. So the good is that. The bad is, can we trust the crowds all the time, right? And can we?
No.
Absolutely not, right? So that's where journalism is important. Journalism comes in and looks at everything and says, okay, the balance of both is this. The second thing I want you to think about is the media monopolies. Big names, again, big names. Do you know what we mean when we say legacy media? Anybody? What's legacy media? Yes?
Like, when I hear legacy media, I think kind of news organizations that have become like institutions and been around for a while. Like
Correct.
Times.
Correct. So in other words, they're traditional, right? The traditional media, the media that you have to use your remote control, turn the TV on to watch. And what are these legacy media doing in order to remain relevant?
Trends.
Following trends, but how? How do they reach you?
Focusing on subcultures.
Yes, but how? How do they reach you? You're not going to turn on you don't use the remote control, I guess, right? Maybe you do for other things, but like you're not turning on the 6 o'clock news to get your news, right? So how are they reaching you?
Making social media accounts.
Very good, right? So it took them a while to catch up, right? But that's what they're doing. So they figured out, I'm legacy media, I'm traditional media, or some people say old media, right? So old and new. So they are catching up, and they're trying to find ways to reach the younger generations, and also the younger generations being the consumers that they want to reach. So what's happening is that a few media giants now control the narrative. So what they did in the early days of social media, there was a hesitancy as to should these legacy media jump in on social media, and they were totally opposed. I remember in 2009, the New York Times also almost went bankrupt, and they were debating whether they should have a Twitter account. And nowadays, not only do they have a Twitter account, they're on TikTok, they have their own platform, they have their own app, right? And they started generating money from social media. They make more money from social media than they do from their print newspaper. I don't even know who buys the print newspaper anymore, right? So these giants are still here, and they're getting together. They're becoming monopolies. They figured out the terrain, and we have to fight them. We have to think about, first, okay, all the voices can be heard, but then all of a sudden the big media came in and said, oh, wait a minute, we're gonna monopolize this space as well, yes? So we have less choices for consumers when that happens, and less competition. That's pretty obvious. How about the untruths? What is another word for untruth?
Misinformation.
Okay, it's a little more dangerous than misinformation. An untruth. What's like a blatantly, what do we call it?
A lie.
A lie, yes. And we're surrounded by people who lie, right? So as a journalist, it's going to be very hard for us to find the truth when we are dealing with people who blatantly lie. People who just tell untruths. You can call it untruth, you can call it misinformation. Some people call it disinformation. I even take it one step further and call it malinformation. Do you know the difference? Can you imagine what's the difference between dis, and malinformation? Yes?
Mis is more of an understanding that you're understanding it wrong. Dis
Right.
is where you're purposefully
Yes.
spreading that information. And mal, I'm not sure.
What's malware? On your computer.
Harmful programs on your computer.
Harmful. When someone intentionally is trying to harm, that's malinformation. When I put the information out there with the intention of harming, it's not just I want to disinform you, I want to harm you. I want to change the results of an election. I want to draw the crowds to a place where I'm going to have an explosion, right? So the intention is to put the information out there, bring the people in order to harm them. So the intention is very important. Innovation. Last night, who was it? Oh my goodness, I said I want to remember it. I think Apple came up with, no, I'm sorry, it's ChatGPT. It's OpenAI. You know OpenAI owns ChatGPT. Who uses ChatGPT here? All of us, right? I mean, if you don't, then where have you been living, right? So what did ChatGPT come up with last night? They announced they have an even more advanced way to search. So now, and it's going to be on the news if it's not already today on the news. But basically, they figured out they're coming up, and I have to say, when did ChatGPT start? Anybody knows?
Last year?
2024, you said?
Was it 2022?
Yeah, it was 2023. That wasn't a long time ago. And since then, it evolved a lot. And even today, they're saying now you're gonna be able to give ChatGPT a prompt and say, search everything on the internet and compare and give me a report. So where would this be helpful, you think? In what area? Yes?
Oh, well, honestly, it can help you, but it's not like credited, because we still have programs like Turnitin where it basically it evaluates if it's
Right.
AI to use.
Right, but let's say about where it would help you. Where do you need comparative? Yes?
Well, Google too, when you do a basic search, it gives you an AI answer, but it also cites where they're getting
Correct.
information.
And that's the new version of ChatGPT. Basically, this advanced search is going to come up with citations. So it's going to be able to tell you where to find this information. But where do we compare? Anybody bought a car here or watched your parent buy a car? Right? Is that what you do? You say, I want a car that's like a 2005 model, I want it to be this, I want it to be that, I'm looking for safety, I'm looking for, color red or color black, or I want it to be convertible or what, right? So you put it out there, and this is something you can do a Google search on, right? So you start with a search, then you change it a little bit, add more information, and then slowly but surely you get to the car that basically ticks all the boxes that you want, right? So basically, this innovation continues. It's not something that's just going to stop or it's going to be ending anytime soon. AI, right? So we're talking about ChatGPT. We're talking about generative AI as well. It's going to help us in graphics and journalism, of course, and film, in all majors, in all careers, and this is not going to go anywhere. So for fun, I put this together for you, and I called it Professor Nasser's Calm Journey. So I was born in 1966, do the math if you want to know how old I am. When I was 1 year old, my mom, and I was born in Lebanon, so it's a developing country, right? So it's a little bit behind, it's a lot behind when it comes to technology and all that. So I was born in 1966. My 1 year old photo, not the oldest, but one of the oldest photos I have, I'm still in diapers, and it's me and my two sisters standing in front of our black and white television. And my mom hired a photographer to come in and take our photos because we didn't have a camera, obviously, right? So the TV, the black and white TV, was a piece of furniture that you buy. It was like a big deal. Just like you go to New York and take a picture with the Statue of Liberty, right? The TV was our Statue of Liberty. It was like, oh, let's have the kids in front of the TV. So that's our memory. But that's when I was 1 year old. In the 70s and 80s, color TV became available. And we weren't rich, we were actually poor. So I would go to school, and the rich kids in school will be talking about, oh, that show, did you watch it? Yo, her jacket is blue. I'm like, blue? How did they know? Oh, they could see color on TV. It was like an amazing sight. For me, I couldn't even imagine it because people were describing it, and all I could see is black and white, right? So color TV and VHS, we started having video. right? Anybody knows what VHS is? Do you still see it like around? So a VHS tape where you have a machine and you play a tape and you watch a movie, for example. So you don't have to watch just the television, what's coming on through the tube. In the 80s and 90s, that's when I started working in television. We had something called the U-matic. It's like, the tape is like this big and this thick, very, very big. And it was low band and high band U-matic. Low band was used in news because it was low band, that means low quality, and high band was used in programming because that was stuff that was going to be archived. So the telex and the fax, anybody knows what a telex is? Fax? A couple of you, right? So a telex is like a computer, like this computer, and that was our way of communicating. And I'm saying our way because I'm talking about me. There was, of course, before me, before my time, there were other ways of communication. But we would communicate by sending messages. It was a computer, but it was the only computer I was using was to send out telexes. So you'd send short messages because it would be very expensive to send a message from Lebanon to the US, for example. But I used it in news a lot because that was fast. So we would do like live telexing, which was even more expensive, but available. I moved to the US in 1990, and here I witnessed the internet and the email. I remember when we switched from telex and fax to email, people were very much against the email. Like, what do you mean you're gonna send a message how does this work? They couldn't even wrap their heads around what an email is. The internet. People will say, one day you're going to be able to do a search on the internet. All books will be on the internet. People are like, that's impossible. How are you going to put all this information in there, and how are people going to find it? So you, because you did not see that, can you imagine your life without internet? No way, right? So for us, this is a miracle. I'm sorry. Then, here, 2006, what happened? We moved from what we called analog, that U-matic and VHS and so forth, to digital, to what you know today, but still digital was not available to everybody, okay? And that's 2009 is when I switched to digital. I started training on editing in digital, shooting video in digital, and so forth. And the reason why I wanted you to see this is that this happened in my lifetime. So I cannot even imagine what's going to happen in yours, right? And if you are not ready for it, then your mind is going to be blown away, right? You have to be ready, and you have to decide, and you have to dictate what's going to happen in the future. Because all these things, we just had to get used to it. We just had to get on with the times. Okay, get trained to use the internet, get trained to use email, get trained to switch from telex to email, and so forth. But your future is going to be very, very different from everything I'm talking about today. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Very good. So this is it. This is me. Reach out to me if you are interested in taking the journalism practicum. And I'm gonna now let you ask all the questions that you need to ask. And you too, ask questions if you have questions. I hope that was helpful.
You know, while you're up there and you're talking about the practicum, let's go ahead and show them the video that
Sure.
you wanted me to share.
Yes.
Georgia State's Journalism Practicum is a capstone signature course that offers students the opportunity to create a journalism piece about a topic of their choice.
In this class, you're given freedom. If you want to do hard news, you can go get the hard news. If you want to do a soft story, you're able to. You can do feature stories. If there's something that fascinates you, you can go out there and get the story, and you won't be told that you can't.
GSU-TV Managing Director and Professor of Practice Octavia Nasr oversees all aspects of the practicum, from going out on team shoots to voice coaching students in the audio booth and teaching writing, producing, and videography in the news and media lab. She says she constantly strives to give students real-life experiences.
Anyone who teaches journalism without hands-on is really not doing the students any service.
Communication students appreciate the sense of empowerment they receive.
She kind of sets the foundation, gives us the guidelines on what she expects from us, but she also respects us as our own journalists to put on our portfolio, to do it on our own.
I think it's very important to give the students the opportunity to feel what it's like to be in the field, what it feels like to work with an editor, to work in a team, not in an academic setting, but the professional setting. It's a totally different animal.
It kind of encourages me to go out more, prepare better, basically helps me prepare for when I actually take on my career.
This is a great opportunity for you to build something for your future. You leave this class, this practicum, with a portfolio.
To help students build their portfolio, GSU TV Professor of Practice Bill Chapman contributes a digital editing seminar within the practicum.
Even just like we had the other day, we had a lecture from Professor Chapman in editing, and for someone like me, I'd never taken editing classes, but he's now a resource we can use to edit our projects and make it just that much better.
Chapman sees his educator role as all-encompassing.
We use the tools to teach the craft, to teach how to create a story, how to visually tell that story, how to tell it with audio. Sound is so very important. All of these aspects come into play. And I think within these courses, especially the practicum, you bring all of that together.
This is where you work as a team, just like you would in a newsroom. I see students really wanting to learn and feeling empowered, feeling that they're leaving this class, they're leaving this major, this university, feeling that I can make a difference.
Making a difference is what Georgia State University is about, as it prepares students to be experts in their disciplinary fields and prepared for future careers. In the journalism practicum, students use their assignments to start building a professional portfolio.
We're giving you the opportunity to produce something that you can be proud of and something that's going to be a very important step forward in your future. So come to class.
From Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Duncan Rollinson for GSU TV.
This is a project for the class. This package is a project for the class, so everything was done by the students. This was a final project that they put together, and everything you saw is done by the students, basically.
Wow. I thought someone else came in and was interviewing the
students. That's the students, yeah.
That was a student project.
Yeah. And you can watch more of the packages on GSU TV, the YouTube channel. So just look up GSU TV, one word, no spaces, YouTube, and you can watch all the practicum packages. And if you have questions about it, please ask.
Yeah, so that was wonderful, Professor Nasr. I do have a few questions. And did anybody share any questions in the discussion so far yet? I can check it later. So the practicum at GSU TV, is it just for journalism students, or can anyone participate?
Anyone can participate, and they get credit for it. It's a cross-listed class, so I have students from all majors who come and take it, because obviously producing TV is something that everybody is interested in. So I have a medical student, a student who was a neuroscience major, and now she's doing pre-med. She was in my spring last year. You can take up to 4 credits in this class. You can also take the class again. So you can take the class for 2 credits, take it again for 2 more credits. The sessions are not the same, because the students really dictate how the class is going to be taught, depending on what they bring in. You start by pitching a story that I will approve, then you pitch the package that I will approve or not approve. Obviously, not everything goes. And then you spend the semester putting it together with your team, and then you help others with their team. So you end up with 2, 3, 4, some people end up with 5 packages at the end of the term that go straight to their portfolio, because you can say, I worked on the story as a script writer, I worked on the story as a producer, so different roles on different productions. it's very interesting. But it's open to everyone. It's also grad and undergrad, any major, and you get 4 credits, up to 4 credits in it.
Okay, that's awesome. Anybody interested in joining the practicum? We have some film students in this class, I know.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so in your presentation, you shared a little bit of your timeline and technology innovation throughout your lifetime. So I would like to first ask you, what inspired you to pursue a career in journalism, and how did you get your start?
That's a very good question, because I was not inspired and I did not mean to be a journalist, and that's something that I think students will appreciate. My undergrad was in communication with a concentration on theater. That was my passion. I think you and I talked about it a little bit. So when I was going to college, again, I mean, I come from a modest middle class family, and I went to one of the most expensive schools in Lebanon. So my parents could not afford to send me to that school, so I had to work. I had financial aid to basically pay for my schooling, and this TV station opened in Lebanon. It was the first independent TV station, the Lebanese Broadcasting Corporation. And one of my friends who was a journalist, she was studying to be a journalist, she applied for a job as a reporter there. And she didn't want to go by herself. She said, "Would you come with me?" And then I went, and I'm sitting outside waiting for her, and this guy is passing by. He says, are you here for an interview? I said, no, I'm with my friend. I'm not even interested. He goes, "Why?" I said, "I can't. I'm working, and I'm full-time in school." And he said, "We have part-time jobs." And I said, "Oh, okay. Like what?" And it was his job. He was the CFO of the station, who was basically, it was during the launch period. So all the big wigs were doing the little jobs. And he couldn't wait to go do his job. He wanted to unload. He was doing assistant director, news director. And he said, "You would do my job. I would train you. You want to come and see tonight?" So I went and saw. I fell in love with the TV atmosphere and the live atmosphere. And apparently I did well. Like when I tested, everyone was like, "Who's this woman?" You have to understand, Lebanon is, like a male chauvinistic culture, especially back then. Women were not welcome in a newsroom. So this tiny voice, this short woman and tiny female voice telling people, "Attention, camera one, take camera one. Attention, this, take this." Like, what was that? And I started there as I was finishing college, basically. So when I graduated from college, I had all this experience in TV, in news, and no experience in theater. So no one would hire me in theater because I didn't have any experience, and I was going to be a starving artist. So I stayed with it, and then from there I just started, you know how it is, you start growing and moving up the ladder, and then I moved to CNN, and I found that I love it so much, but it wasn't my first choice, and it wasn't something that I desired to be or do, and it just happened, and I fell in love.
Wow, sort of like divine intervention.
Something like that.
That's amazing. I hear stories like that a lot, especially in television and the arts. "Oh, I just happened to be there and I got noticed," and that's amazing. So, wow. So we've discussed in this class so far comparing journalism and news, contrasting those two concepts. What is your idea about contrasting or comparing news and journalism? What is the differences or similarities that you see as a professional?
So news, to work in news, you have to be a journalist, right? So start with that. But you don't have to work in news to be a journalist. Does that make sense? So as a journalist, you can be an environmental journalist, you can be a feature journalist, you can be like astronomy, like you can be specialized in a field. You can also do different jobs in journalism. Journalism is not like one thing and that's it. You can be an editor, like that piece that you saw. Someone produced it, someone wrote the script for it, someone shot the elements, the camera work, someone did the editing, someone tracked it. All these are different jobs when you are in the business, right? So you don't, so you can say, I'm a journalist, I work for CNN. To me, it doesn't mean anything. You have to tell me which department you're in, what it is that you do for me to understand what your role is in journalism. So journalism is much, much wider. News even is also different because you can be also specialized in what kind of news, or like in my case, my specialty is breaking news. So live breaking news, because I worked at CNN, so we're constantly in breaking news mode. But I don't know if you know that like CNN is celebrating, they just celebrated their 40th and moving into, like, I don't know, 40 something now, 44 maybe. But did you know that before CNN, there was no 24-hour news? Did you all know that?
No.
You didn't know that, right? So do you know who started CNN? Anybody? Ted Turner, right? You know, when Ted Turner started CNN, people thought that he went mad. They were saying, the man is crazy. The man is wasting his money. Who's gonna watch news 24 hours? A lot of people do now, right? But that's the innovation when we talk about where you see the future.
They said that about a lot of people.
They said exactly, right? Because they can't see. They can't see that this person has a vision. That's why they call them visionaries, right? Because they can see what we don't see, right? So CNN started as the first 24-hour news network, and today, can we imagine our life without having access to news 24/7? Sometimes we want more than one source, right? And then all the specialty TV stations started, 24-hour sports, 24-hour, even like what's that channel like where they sell products? QVC, right? Yeah. 24 hours selling products. When people could not even imagine that you can buy things in a different way than just going to the store to buy them, right? So when you think about it this way, you start imagining that, so how did we do things? That wasn't a long time ago, 40 years ago. That wasn't a long time ago, right? And look where we are today. So there wasn't something called live television back then. The live events were like Apollo landing on the moon. That was like a live event. Election maybe coverage or assassination, and like coverage was short live, right? So CNN redefined all this, and then we have now breaking news and live events and all that. So journalism, again, to go back to the main question, it can be any one of these. You can be an entertainment journalist, right? Just do entertainment. You can do news about entertainment, right? Or let's see, a celebrity dies in a plane crash, right? You bring in the entertainment journalist to do breaking news now, because that's a breaking news story. Does that make sense to you, what I'm saying? So it's vast. It's really, really vast. But anybody can do news, but it doesn't have to be, just news to do journalism. You can be doing features. Like this piece that you saw, is this news?
Because it is informative, so.
It's informative, yeah, okay. But informative doesn't have to be necessarily news, right? For example, if you're watching your local channel tonight and this piece is on the news, right? It can be on the news, but it doesn't have to be news per se, right? It can be a feature that's on the news. Does that make sense? Yeah. Whereas what can be news, like if we take this piece, like something that like what we're doing now is more news, right? Because it's happening right now, it's news, this is, you're getting something new out of it, it's happening in front of your eyes. But if you shoot elements, or when you watch the podcast later on, or if you watch the podcast in 10 days or a year from now, you can still watch it, right? It's not news anymore, but it is informative, right? It is interesting, it is entertaining, it is, so you give it those labels, and then all of a sudden you start thinking, okay, well, let me think about it. Is it news? And some things might be like, it might have like a touch of news in them, but the piece that I showed you is pure feature. That's what we call feature, but also it can be feature news, right? It's a little complex, but I think you'll get to, the more you do it and the more you talk about it and hear about it and think about it, the more you get it. But there are gray areas too.
Yes,
of course.
absolutely. I just want to make sure. Okay. Sorry. So another concept that we talked about in this class too is, let me find my question.
Do you want to, what was your question?
Oh, you have a question?
No.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
please, if anybody has a question. We discussed bias. What do you consider to be news bias? And in your career, how did you approach or address bias?
Excellent question. And when I used to work at CNN and I would go around and talk to students, like what we're doing now, but I was at CNN, so I'm bound by the CNN basically rules and ethics. And students will ask this question, and they would ask it in a way like, how can you be objective, or how can you not be biased? And I would say, bias and objectivity are the most subjective terms that can exist. Like when you say, this is biased, you're basing it on what? Let's see, what are you basing this on? Yes?
It could be like personal experiences.
Right, you're basing it on your own bias. Right? So you watch something and it appeals to you, it kind of strikes a chord for you to say, oh, this is the truth. They're telling the truth. That's very objective reporting. And then someone reports the same story, but in a way that doesn't sit well with you, and that's biased. Right? So as a journalist, your job is to find the balance. Your job is to watch something and say, this person is lying to me. Right? This person is not telling the truth. And it is my job to push back until I get the information that I need, but not in a biased way. And part of that, and look, this is going to be a little bit complex for you to grasp, but I did this in our grad school in one of our ethics classes, where I looked at how US media descended into this sort of quagmire that we're in right now. And basically it was when we look at people and we give them the benefit of the doubt. For example, we as media here in the US, we look at the president and we respect the office, right? So we don't call a president a liar. We just don't, even if they're lying. So media started using terms like untruth. That's why I used untruth, because I wanted you to think about it. And untruth is a lie. But instead of telling someone you're a liar, you're saying you're being untruthful. What does that mean? Right? So it took us a while to catch on, to say, wait a minute, this person is lying constantly. I have to change the way I do things, because journalists are bound by ethics. So you're not supposed to have a bias. Even if you have a personal bias, when you're doing an interview, when you're talking to someone, when you're reporting a story, you leave your bias at home. You don't bring it to your story, right? But then we found that because journalists are bound by these ethics, they're basically on the losing end of telling the truth. Because then if you have a bully and a victim, and I'm going to report on the bully and the victim equally, and I'm going to give the bully the same amount of time as the victim, guess who I'm helping? I'm helping the bully, right? So this is where we talk about like equity. What is equity versus equality, right? Am I going to give you the same amount of time to talk as someone else, even if I know that that's going to come out of your mouth is going to be a lie? So we have a crisis in this country and around the world. We have a crisis of how do we deal with people who are trying to manipulate us And there used to be a time when people were honest. I mean, they would lie about like something like, oh, okay, I'm disabled. I don't want my people to see me disabled, so okay, I'm gonna cover it up. I mean, that's not harmful. That's just, okay, please don't do that, but you're not hurting me by hiding your disability from me, right? Whereas other things happen, and I'm not talking about just the latest administrations, I'm talking about years and years, like several administrations back, where politicians figured out that, hey, I can manipulate the media because, look, if I can go on air, for example, let's say if I now say, fire, and we all start running, right? I'll figure out that all I have to do next time is scream fire in the hallway, in the yard, in the library. So I walk in and fire, and everybody is running. How's that helping anybody? But it's helping me because I distract everybody from the thing that they were going after, and now they have to deal with a stampede that's about to happen because I yelled fire. So with that said, bias is bias. Yes, there is some really, like very open bias. For example, some media are what we call partisan, right? That means they belong to a certain party or they're owned by a certain person and they serve the agenda of that person or whoever owns them. That exists, and that's a bias. That's different. But I'm talking more, I want you to pay attention to the subtle bias, and I want you to think about how your own bias can come into the picture. Like, am I saying this is bias because I am biased in this way, or because really that person is, like, am I biased towards my practicum, my journalism practicum? That's a good question for you. Am I biased about it? What do you think?
Can there be good bias and bad bias in a sense? But you might have like a good bias in terms of like your experience, but you don't necessarily express it or show it, but you still set that boundary in a way that's respectful, and then there's
correct. Yeah, but today, in this experience today, when I talked about it, was that biased or was that objective? It's biased, right? Because what did I say in the beginning? I'm gonna have a shameless plug for my course. So I'm selling the course. That's what I'm doing. Your professor talking about me, introducing me, she's being objective, right? She's not biased. She's not saying, oh, you have to like this person because, da, da, da. She's just saying, this is who it is. This is what she's done. She teaches this class, She's serving you an objective speaker, right? Here's the speaker. Objectively, she's introducing the speaker. Now, the speaker might have a bias in certain areas, and then yes, you're right. Sometimes this bias is exactly what we want because they bring in expertise, right? So the bias is not always bad, but I'm talking about news. If I'm reporting on an event that's happening in Atlanta, Georgia, you want your reporter, you want your journalist to be unbiased. You want them to be, just tell me what happened, then I'll make my own opinion.
Right.
Does that make sense? That's what we want journalists to do. We don't want them to give us opinion. We have a lot of opinions, right? When you watch TV, you see a lot of people there, kind of what we call talking heads in the business. They're just sitting there and talking, yakking. They get paid to talk. And they're there to take this position. They're there to be on the right. They're there to be on the left. That's their job. Don't take those people's words and think, oh, that's the truth. Like people say, oh, I saw it on the internet. Like, who put it on the internet? Do you even know the source of that? Oh, I saw it. 10 people shared it. Well, those 10 people can be just one person sitting in Mongolia and posting for you with a different name, and then you're falling right into the trap. Yes?
I was going to ask, how was it like, so your experience with CNN, and you were an international journalist, correct? From the 90s to 2010, how was Middle Eastern relations with America was very turmoil around that time, especially after 9/11, of course. How was your experience within the media monopolies, and being able, like, what was your experience like in being able to reveal truths prior to 9/11, after, but just in general, like, yeah, just with your own personal bias, of course, because of your ancestry and where you're from, but also with the position of the American government at that time today?
Very good question. Excellent question. And
Can you repeat a little bit what she said? Can you
yeah,
summarize what she
so
said?
basically the question is about how do I personally feel about the period when I worked at CNN, where the relationship between the Middle East and the US was, you know, turbulent, especially after 9/11, and how did I deal with my own bias, you know, coming from the Middle East, and how things worked out. And that's a very, very good question for many reasons. One, I'm glad that you asked it, because this is something I'd like to explain. I was hired because of my expertise. Okay, so this is very important. Sometimes you hire someone because they bring in expertise that others don't have. So that's one. Two, it is not easy. It's not an easy thing. I always told people, like, I say, oh, leave your bias at home. But it's not easy to leave your bias at home. But one thing I developed over the years is basically when I'm dealing, I always, and I talked about it a lot. When I'm dealing with news, when I'm at work and I'm dealing with a breaking news story, I'm not Octavia Nasr. I'm just the CNN reporter dealing with the news. And I'm going to give you another example just to make it easy for you. If you are a medical doctor and you are in a movie theater and someone faints and you have people say, help me, is there a doctor in the house? If there is a doctor in the house, the doctor is going to jump in and deal with the situation. They're not going to say, are they white, are they black, are they, you know, African, are they Asian, do they speak English, do they speak, you know, Mandarin, do they, you know, do they vote for Trump or Biden? None of that. Because what you're dealing with right now is someone who fainted. And all your job is not to say, oh, he voted for, I'm not going to take care of it. You don't, that's not what people do. So journalism is very much a vocation, just like doctors. They're not there. I mean, some of them are, obviously, right? You go to a doctor and you pay money, and you know, that's they make a living doing this job. But when you are in the moment, you're just a doctor. When you are in the moment of breaking news, you're just a CNN reporter. Was there times when I felt that the coverage was not fair? Yes. And I speak up. That's what you do. You know, basically you're hired to be that person, that reasonable person who says, and I remember times when my bosses will say, you know, we're sanitizing the story because a lot of times, for example, you can't show blood, you can't show, you know, dead bodies, you can't show because it's not acceptable, because that's very traumatic for the audience, right? And people will say, you know what, but we're cleaning it up. People need to see how bad things are on the ground, right? So that's where your job is to basically speak truth to power. And sometimes it's intentional, the bias is intentional, and you feel it and you have to speak up. Sometimes you pay a price for speaking up, right? So what I'm saying is it's not easy, and you find your balance, and a lot of times you have to prove yourself first and earn the respect of your colleagues first, so they know that you're honest, they know that you have the best interest of your company and the audience at heart. And then once they trust you and you trust them, then you work together. And the other thing that is very important, and I want you to keep in mind, is that, you know, checks and balances are very important. So it's not like I have something to say, I just go on air and I start babbling. It doesn't work like this. So you have different levels of checks and balances. If I'm a journalist at CNN, I'm working with a team. I'm not working alone. So you have people around you who will keep you honest, and then you keep them honest, right? And then you write a script. The script is going to go through copy editing. Copy editing is going to say, where did you get this information from? And you're going to say, oh, I found it on the internet. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to do it for you. You have to say, so-and-so said it, and I confirmed with his office or her office that, yes, they said that. Or I have the video to prove it. Oh, and oh, by the way, I didn't cut the piece of the video that works for me. the whole video is here and I took this soundbite from it. So you have people who will question you, not because they distrust you, but their job is to basically maintain the standards and ethical practices of CNN. And then above that, there is something called standards and practices. So you have in the newsroom, you have writers, you have copy editors, then you have standards and practices for issues such as the ones I'm saying, blood, death. Also, like when you feel that, oh, I have this situation where this person is saying this, but it's coming across as too one-sided. You bring in standards and practices to basically support you, either to help you find a way to tell the story without sounding biased yourself. And then above that, there's the legal department. So there are things where if you say something, someone can sue you, because and you can see now that a lot of situations are happening because we did not deal with them at when they happened. So later on, you have people filing lawsuits and saying, "Oh, you ruined my image because you reported on me as this," right? And that's where the legal department comes in, and you have to. And these are lawyers on your team that will say, "Well, you can't tell the story this way because." You'll get us in trouble. You'll get yourself in trouble, you'll get the company in trouble. So when you think about it, these layers in companies, in organizations are very helpful. So in my case, for example, I always loved copy editing. I loved my copy editors. I still do, as a matter of fact. One, they help me stay balanced and they help me stay on message. And also they were my safety net. So if I said something that could be taken out of context or something, they will point it out to me. So they're not my enemies, they're my colleagues, they're my support system. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have some questions that some students put in the discussion.
Yes.
So I want to get to some of those when we have some time. So Kyla asked this question: what are your other motives for making journalism your life? She says, I know you stated that as you witness a change in media, you begin to learn all you could about it. But I'm curious, what were your other motives for taking in this profession and making it your life? What do you absolutely love about this field? And lastly, and I was going to ask this question anyways, so good question. What advice would you give to people who dabbling in this field or wants to make this their profession as well? So Kyla, if you want to just raise your hand so we know.
Great question, of course. Great question. I'm so proud of you for asking, tough questions. Never be shy to ask tough questions. I think that's important. And I feel like when we talked about it and we said, oh, I'll send you the questions. And I said, don't send me, let's keep it natural, right? I want you to be tough when you ask questions. Ask the questions that are on your mind, not the questions that people expect you to ask, right? So that's a very good question, because my passion was not journalism, right? So why did I love it? One, I'm very competitive. And this is a competitive field. Oh my goodness, getting the story first before anybody else, I'm there, right? Telling it first, see, I get goosebumps when I say it, right? Getting it right. Not just first, but getting it right.
Yeah, because if you get it wrong, it's going to be...
You see, so I think what happened, the challenge was amazing. When I started at CNN in 1990, it was right after the invasion of Kuwait. Saddam Hussein had invaded Kuwait. And Ted Turner, and if you can watch the documentary, it's a 6-part documentary called Call Me Ted, I think. It talks about Ted's journey, and I think episode 4 is all CNN, is how he built CNN, how he started CNN. So back then, in 1990, CNN was not known yet. It was still called the Chicken Noodle Network, and it's not gonna make it, and it's gonna, break the bank, and he's gonna go bankrupt and all that. So for me to start there was interesting, and Ted was betting on the war. He was like, his vision said there's gonna be a war, and we need to be there in case the war starts, and that's exactly what happened. So CNN was the only network in Baghdad when the war broke out, and that was my start. So I started in September. The invasion had just happened, and the war began, I think, around December, and it went on through the spring, right? So for me, that was like, wow. In Lebanon, it was telling the truth. It was like, when the war started in Lebanon, I was 9. So I went to school through war, went to college through war, worked through war. My whole life, when I left, the war was still raging in Lebanon. So it was a matter of, do I hide and die? Because, you know, you're threatened of dying every single day when you live in war. Or do I do something about it? So it was more like, I mean, I'm young, I was fearless. Now I'm a wimp. Now I will never go to war, and I don't want my kids to go to, I don't want anyone to go and cover wars, right? If you ask me, I'll say, don't do it, right? And when I worked at CNN, it was voluntary. You have to volunteer to go to war zones. People will never assign it to you anymore. It's not like the old days. So it was like I was young. I was very young. I was in my early 20s, probably your age. And like that was something to do instead of hiding in a shelter and waiting for the next bomb to take me and my family out, right? And then I found the power of journalism is pretty amazing. I come also from a country where journalists get killed for what they say and what they write. So Lebanon is known for assassinations of journalists and people who speak up. So I'm on that side of the equation. I'm on the equation of I'm going to speak my truth, even if it's going to cost me my life. And like I said, I'm a wimp. You know, at 58, I'll be 59 in March. I'm a wimp, right? I'll say it. I'm not going to go to a war zone now unless I have to. And when I'm caught in a war zone, I'll be the first one to get out. I promise you that. But back then, it was the right thing to do. I fell in love with the idea of being the first person on the scene, telling the story as it is, sharing it with the world. The people will be like watching television and seeing my story that is very different from any other story they're gonna see on television. It got me my job at CNN. At CNN, it was at the universal level now, you know, competing with the biggest names in television and in news and giving CNN its name. I pride myself on being one of those journalists that were there when CNN got its name. And so I don't know if that speaks to the question. Do you feel the passion? That's the passion. That's where it comes from. Working with people who depend on you. You know, like in the newsroom, people had a say. When Octavia stood up in the newsroom, you knew it was breaking news. I did a lot of bin Laden after 9/11, became an expert on bin Laden and terrorism and Islamic terrorism. And when I stood in the newsroom were like, okay, breaking news. That means I'm going to announce something that's going to be breaking news, and I'm going to go on the set and lead the story until our journalists are able to take it over.